Hi, good evening, 6:30, and it's the Jon Gaunt Show live on YouTube and Twitter, X, Facebook, wherever you're watching it. The big question tonight, just for a bit of fun, would you swap Donald Trump for Keir Starmer to be our leader? So would you, I know it's hypothetical, but would you go for Trump rather than Starmer? Do you prefer Trump's style? I mean, today, don't know if you've seen the news yet, but Keir Starmer was channeling his inner Trump. He was doing this talk about the NHS and about cuts and the rest of it. And he'd said earlier in the day, he'd put out one of these pathetic tweets that he does, where he says, when a job needs doing, I roll up my sleeves and I get on with it. And then, of course, it goes to Hull where he is, and he hasn't got a jacket on and he's got his sleeves rolled up. It's so pathetic. He should shoot his PR man. In fact, if he did shoot him, that would probably be an improvement on his PR. He'd probably go up in the ratings if he gave him a slap, because it's ludicrous. No one's taken in by this absolute garbage. But he was channeling his inner Trump because he's now trying to do an Elon Musk and cut the civil service down. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would ever really want to do that. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Because Trump's got lots of faults as well, hasn't he? But Trump has done so much in 8 or 10 weeks. Starmer's not done that. Starmer, it's all in 5 years' time, we'll do this. In 10 years' time, we will have achieved this. Don't we just need action? Isn't that what this reform row is about between Farage and Rupert Lowe, which, by the way, has got right on my TITSs? Can't they just act like grown-ups and get on with it? Their job is to try and save our nation, isn't it? But let's get back to Trump and Starmer. I'm going to come to your comments soon. Keep sending them in. So would you swap Donald Trump for Keir Starmer? Because they've got totally different leadership styles, totally different political ideologies, although the left and the right seem to become one thing now. And what impact will this have on the future for all of us? Because Trump is a populist. That's why he got a landslide victory. And of course, populist and populism in this country with our media is a dirty word. It's almost like the CUN next Tuesday word for the middle classes, the mainstream media. They can't handle Trump and the way that Trump just basically gets on with it. Look at what he's done with Ukraine. Okay, he hasn't pulled it off yet, but do you doubt whether he's going to do so? I don't. I think he's going to pull it off. And he's pulled it off by, being a bully. No, he's just told Zelensky, shut up. I'll sort this. He's the big boy in the playground. He's the one with all the weapons. He's the one with all the money. Whereas Starmer tried to upstage him. Do you remember? He had that meeting where he got the European leaders. What was it? The coalition of the bloody useless, where they were going to stand up to Trump and tell him how to do it. Only one country joined us, France. Well, they'll be a great help, won't they, on their past record? Nobody else has joined. Poland said no. Germany said 9, I presume. They're not getting involved, even though they've got the biggest army and the strongest economy. You cannot govern by committee. I was in a workers' cooperative many, many years ago. There was a boss. It was me. You can't have committee after committee to decide what to do. That's how you end up with blandness. The great entrepreneurs in this world, I'm not saying I'm one of them, by the way, but they're individuals. They sometimes have to get other people in to make it work for them. And in a sense, that's what Trump has done this time. He's learned his lesson, hasn't he? Elon Musk is in there as the cost-cutting chainsaw maniac. But do you see any strengths in the cabinet that Starmer's got together? It's consensus politics. He's aided and abetted, of course, by our media. Let's see what you're saying. Sophie Yates is just one word. No. She would not swap Starmer for Trump. Now, she's in a minority because I put this question up earlier on Twitter and on Facebook, and Twitter went crazy. Everybody was saying, in a heartbeat, of course we would. But it might be different tonight. Sophie, if you want to develop that, that'd be good. Evening, John. Starmer swapped with Trump In a heartbeat, I would. And that's the kind of reaction I was getting earlier. Michael Nettleton, Trump any day of the week. Starmer's got no backbone. Yes, he has. He's got the backbone of an amoeba or a blancmange. Yeah, he hasn't got it. But you see, today he confirmed again. He wants to send your children to die in Ukraine. Because mark my words, if our boys and girls go in there, there'll be deaths. There'll be body bags at Bryce Norton. One of my regular contributors, Joanne, she wrote up, over my dead body will I let my child fight for him. And I think that reflects an awful lot of people in this country. Who the hell does he think he is? His pampered son couldn't do his A-levels at home, evidently, a revision, because there was too much press outside. Well, that was the cock and bull story about why he was staying at Lord Alley's flat. But he's going to send his precious son to the front, is he? Willie Hellers like. Reformer acting like a bunch of squabbling schoolboys. That's Sophie Yates. She's the woman who wouldn't swap Starmer for Trump. Now you're making a decent point. I agree with you. The whole reform row is ludicrous. And I see Farage has doubled down on it again. He won't even have lunch or dinner with Rupert. They should have sorted this out amongst themselves. Starmer doesn't command any respect from anyone, says Peter 2704 on YouTube. Is that your view? Can somebody message in and say why they would defend Starmer? Is Trump, because loads of people now are saying Trump is a dictator. I just think that's lazy commentary. He's not a dictator. He did win the popular vote. He won the House, he won the Senate, he won Congress, he's won the judges, he's won everything. So he has got a real mandate to change America again. Now, he would say they're going to make America great again. However, Starmer's got a massive majority, not the popular vote. It's not the same as Trump. And let's be honest, most people voted for Starmer because he was the least worst option. Not me. I voted Green. I should have kept the voting slip to prove it because all my mates laugh when I say that. But I did. I didn't see any point in voting for anybody else. But I would like the water and the seas cleaned up and the rivers. And this populist approach, the fact that Trump can speak to ordinary people, isn't that what we're missing in British politics? We had it with Tony Blair, whether you hate him or not. And Boris Johnson, we had it. He could communicate. But Starmer is just useless. He was doing a few anecdotes in this speech today, and there was a guy there with stage 4 terminal cancer, and I felt for him. But he basically said this to Trump, and then he had a point, not to Trump, to Starmer. And then Starmer tried to do the human thing of just talking, and he can't do it. It's so stilted. He's like a robot man. He's like Action Man, the old string pull ones, where they've only got 2 or 3 things they can say. In Starmer's case, no Action Man. It did surprise me, to be honest, the way he tried to take the initiative about Ukraine. But let's be fair, he failed. And the press were so far up his backside, they could clean his teeth from inside. The British press basically said, he's proven himself to be the great statesman. Exactly what we need at these troubled times. No, it isn't. What we need in these troubled times is a hard case, because you're fighting a hard case. Putin's a hard case. Imagine if Zelensky had gone into number 10 and spoken to Starmer like he spoke and reacted to Trump and J.D. Vance. He would have capitulated and given him anything he wanted. That's not the way to deal with it. You need a tough deal broker. And I think he will pull it off. And do you know what I love most about Trump? And I loved it in the first time he was in power. When he says, I'm going to make America great again. Yes, we Brits laugh at that a little bit, even if we support him. But he means it. He absolutely means it. When he hugs the flag and kisses it, he means it. It may have terrible consequences for our country, especially now that he's putting the trade tariffs on, because on the wines and champagnes and the rest of it. And I read somewhere today, somebody said he's out of order doing that. No, he's not. He's protecting his country and his people. That's the first job of any leader or any government, isn't it? Or have I got that wrong? I don't want him to do it. And I don't think he would have done it if we'd shown the backbone and backed him against Zelensky. But look at what we've got. We've got Trevor Lammy as the... not Trevor Lammy? David Lammy. I went to school with Trevor Lammy. I keep getting that mixed up. I do apologise. He was brilliant. Great footballer. But anyway, David Lammy, it's just been revealed. He spent over £7,000. Don't laugh. Stop sniggering at the back. On biscuits. Wait, it gets worse. Just for one meeting. £7,000. How do you spend £7,000 on biscuits in a month, let alone in a day, for one meeting? No wonder he looks like a big fat toad. I can say that because I'm fat. But it's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. And they've got into power, haven't they? Labour. Snouts have all gone in the trough, starting with the suits, the glasses by their supreme leader, also followed up, of course, by the Taylor Swift tickets, the apartment in New York for, what's her name? Angela Rayner. The messed up CV by the Chancellor, who was never a top economist, like she said. What else was there? Oh, there's the other one, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, Louise Haigh, the NHS person who had to go because there was the mystery of the mobile phone. I'm not saying that people in the American government won't be feathering their nest, but at least he's trying to send a message, we're not having that, isn't he? And of course, don't start me off on what about Boris, what about PP? I agree with all that. They were just as corrupt, if not more corrupt. But if I had to make a choice, go to bed tonight and wake up in the morning, I'd like to wake up in Trump land, because I think I know where I'd stand. I don't think I'd be getting the police, the stormtroopers, knocking on my door for something I've said to you lot tonight on Facebook. But that's the kind of fear we're living in. Everybody is censoring themselves, even me. I'm going to be honest with you. I do think before I make up what the cartoon's going to be like to illustrate the podcast or the broadcast, I do really, really think about what I'm going to say. I don't want to be like that. I just want to speak. You shouldn't be getting arrested, your door knocked for hurty words. If you break the law and you libel somebody or slander them, there's plenty of laws in place for protection like that. Starmer, ever since the riots in the summer, he's using fear as a way of controlling the masses. He's scared stiff. Absolutely scared stiff, because he hasn't got any courage in what he's doing, any real commitment. He hasn't got the big political vision. Now we can all laugh at Trump and we're going to make America great again, and Elon Musk, we're going to live on Mars. It's called ambition. And I love it. I love that American way. And when you compare him to Joe Biden, don't we want somebody like that who says, here's my agenda, suck it up, losers. Let's move on. Steve says, evening, John. It would have to be Trump every time. And of course, this is about my essential question, would you swap? And of course, J.D. Vance, they've sought our great country. But also, what is J.D. Vance's book called, please? Yeah, the book is called The Hillbilly Elegy. Yeah, you just go into any bookshop, they'll have it. If you say J.D. Vance's book, they've just reprinted it. I thought it was inspirational. I loved reading it. My very good friend Rosemary, I was talking to this morning, she hates it. She thinks it's badly written. She's a bit of a lefty, but she actually doesn't like the way it's written. I loved it. I really got into it. He had a background worse than the Waltons, let me tell you. His mum was a smackhead. Terrible background he comes from. Absolute poverty-stricken. Got to top university, I think it was Yale, and now is the second most important person in the world. And also, I see Putin is beginning to understand that there's going to have to be a deal. There will have to be a deal. And I think if Trump pulls this off, which I'm confident he will over the next few days, then the whole trouble with Hamas will fall into place as well. A tough leader with many faults, but also when we look at Starmer, What about these rumors that aren't going away, that are swirling around about him? The free suits, the glasses, the vocal coach. Let's not forget her, the lady who was married to the Confessions of a window cleaner star, Robin Asquith. What was she giving him vocal lessons on Christmas Eve for? None of these things have been answered. So let's not make out he's the virgin white knight come to save us all. Yeah? Anyway, Jim Gullen, what a waste of space is he? Sir, so much for being a man of the people. Thank you. Free Gear Keir is a stiff and not in a good way. He lacks charisma, which he needs to be if he wants to be a world leader. I agree with you. When you saw his coalition that he was trying to get together of the useless, I mean, even Trudeau was involved. Did any of them give you any inspiration, any kind of courage that if Russia kicks off, that they can stand up to Russia? They can't even stand up to Zelensky, which, you know, when he gets a bit petulant, which is what he did, he threw his toys out of the pram and he underestimated the response that Trump would give him. He's now had to go back and grovel, right? Imagine if Putin starts playing that game, which undoubtedly he will. And look, you know, just on a side issue, and I'm just going to plant this here for you in a moment. What is that about that tanker and the other boat ship crashing into it near Withensea? I used to work at Withensea when I was a kid, when I lived in Hull. They had a fairground sort of indoor amusement arcade. And it's like hell on earth, that place. So just up the road, there's Hornsea and then Filey, a nice place like that. But Withensea is the land that time forgot. But anyway, these boats have collided. Now we find out today the skipper of the boat that went into the other boat was a Russian. All the crew, like most merchant navy crewmen now, are Filipinos. How does one ship hit another one? Because, you know, like with aeroplanes, they have an alarm system that goes off. Even in cars now, you can't get too close without the bloody computer telling you you're too close. If you can read this, you're too damn close. Yeah? I don't know. There's something in that. And the press was full of it, and now it's gone quiet. Call me a conspiracy nut. You're a conspiracy nut. But I'm thinking there's something odd, something very, very odd. So let's get back to populism, because that's what Trump is saying. Trump's saying these are your concerns. So if he was in charge here, he would be stopping the boats, stopping illegal immigration, and doing mass deportations, wouldn't he? Which is what Rupert Lowe wants to do. Unfortunately for Rupert, he hasn't got the charisma that Donald's got. Donald's already sending people back on the southern border. He's put loads of military down there, so the amount of people coming in has dropped as well. Whereas in this country, we've still got the leeches of the legal world still saying they're above our parliament. They're going to cause all kinds of problems if we start to try and deport people. I've just had somebody saying, a good old friend of mine actually, he said, well, you can't, where are you going to deport these people to Afghanistan where they wouldn't be safe? No, I want to deport them to France because that's where they come from. And the last time I looked, Loff, that's his name, the last time I looked, France is pretty safe, isn't it? They're meant to get asylum in the first country they arrive in. Everybody is taking the mickey out of the UK because we're not strong enough. We've now got a human rights lawyer, and clearly not a very good one. I refer you to the Jimmy Savile case and many of the other cases, in charge. So it's like a green light for everybody to try it on, both countries and individuals. I don't blame people wanting to come and live in our great country. Of course they should. English is the second language of most of the world. I'd rather live here than live in France. But I've got to say, at the moment, I'd rather live in America under Donald Trump than under this government, because this government, where they can knock your door in for hurty words or something that you write or even something that you think, like I mean, I'm not these anti-abortion women, but just for praying in the street, they're getting arrested. I don't like what's going on, and I want the populist approach. So I want Starmer to say, what's your top priority, guys? And I'm sure people would say it's the cost of living and immigration, both legal and illegal. Okay, I'll get that sorted. But he hasn't, has he? And he isn't. And then he just this speech today about how AI is going to be wonderful and he's rolling them. It's a pity we can't, well, I was going to say replace you with AI, but maybe we have already. Maybe he's a primitive version of an AI prime minister because he only ever trots out the same rubbish. He's got no personality. I said today he's got the personality of a recycled brown paper bag. And that's accurate. That's what he's like. Imagine having him round for dinner. Could you? The best judge of anyone is, would you go for a beer with them? Would you go for a beer with Keir Starmer? No. Can you imagine? He'd have half anyway, wouldn't he? That's what he'd drink. He'd have half. He made a joke about that today. He said, oh, some woman who runs a brewery in Cornwall had told him something about beer. And he said, I'm going to check that out. When's the last time he drank a pint of beer? Did you see him when he got chucked out during the election of a pub? That was down in Cornwall, Devon Way as well. And I know loads of pubs where I live. They've got signs up. Keir Starmer, banned. They won't allow him in. That's the view. And then, of course, don't forget this government is also now trying to get it so that barmaids, I don't think we're allowed to call them that anymore, bar people could hear you say something a bit off colour or it could offend them and they could get you arrested. So now they want to ban free speech and the crack, the banter in the pub. Well, I hope they don't come into my local on a Friday night because some of the things we're talking about, I'd probably end up with a life sentence. Next door to the bloke who's raped and murdered loads of people who got 10 years and has been let out early because he's had good behaviour. That's kind of the ridiculous world we're living in. No free speech anymore, at least in America. And this isn't Donald Trump's doing. It's the Constitution, isn't it? The amendments. They've got the right to free speech. That's at the top of their agenda. Surely it's time for that to be like that in this country. If you're enjoying what I'm talking about, if it's challenging you, feel free to comment. I'm coming to your comments now. But also, if you'd like to help me out, there's several ways you can do it. One of which is to buy me a coffee, which you've not been doing recently. It's got a bit quiet. So it's www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt. And a coffee is a £5. So you can buy one coffee or 10 coffees, or what most people do is 3. And it all goes to help to subsidize these podcasts. The other way you could do it is you could become a fan of mine on my YouTube channel, Jon Gaunt TV, which is where I'm broadcasting now. And I think that's 99p or $2.99 if you want to be a super fan. So don't be tight. Be a super fan. Thank you. How else can you help? Oh, well, other people have helped because they've given me lights and they've given me gifts in kind. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not too proud. How else can I do this? I'm not going to get a job on the BBC, am I? Especially when I do my broadcast tomorrow about the BBC. That's going to be a cracker. Hi, John. Another question, says Steve. If Putin doesn't agree to the peace deal, what do you think Trump's next move would be? Sanctions, massive sanctions against him. And I think he would even be willing to say, right, it's conflict time. He'd put his troops into Ukraine. But it's kind of immaterial because Putin is going to do a deal. Putin doesn't want a war. This idea that Russia's all there, ready to eat our babies, it's just nonsense. And I get called a Putin apologist for this and all the rest of it. It's just sensible, just logical. And if you go to Russia, which I have been, they're just like us. Nobody wants war, for God's sake. Don't get me wrong. He should not have invaded Ukraine. However, there is an argument that the EU and NATO should not have threatened expansion into the east, which is what happened. And now Zelensky wants to be in NATO, which is the last thing we want. Because then next time he has a tiff with Putin and Putin gives him a slap, metaphorically speaking, we'll be in a war because that's the rules of NATO. That's what Trump's worried about. I've got a feeling Trump might pull out of NATO completely. But this is what these uber liberal, the coalition of the useless, is pushing Trump to. This is why he's put 200% or something on their wine. It's because the French have dared to take him on. over trade sanctions. Don't forget, we're slightly different because we're out of the EU, but you can't blame him. You can't blame him. He's been paying, or America's been paying, for our defense in Europe ever since the Second World War. A disproportionate amount. All he's saying is that's not fair, guys. Let's equal this up. I'm with Trump, and I'd like Trump to be in charge of our country. And then all those questions are we paying reparations for slavery and all the rest of it, and paying lawyers to represent IRA murderers who may have got a bit roughed up by the SAS during the Troubles or the war, which is what I call it. It wasn't Troubles, it was a war. That would all be kicked out the window, wouldn't it? Compo culture would be over. That's why there's no way he's going to be able to reform the NHS and this two-tier thing he's got. No way. No way. They'll all be in for the compos. David Daines, I wouldn't take it either. Our political system is broken. Portsmouth North have a lot to answer for. The closest leader to Maggie is now not an MP, Penny Mordaunt. Well, she blew it herself, didn't she? She could have left the Tories, I guess. He should go to the front line as target practice. Why should our children fight for his ego, says Ronnie Hurst. What's the next one? Britain is a joke at the moment on YouTube, says Tom. And then he says, I'm glad I managed to leave, and I live in Switzerland for a better quality of life. I bet you do. UK is, and now he's rubbing it in. This is Tom again. UK is in real decline, and once you have lived abroad, you notice the difference. Adam, I've just remembered how to put the comments on the screen, so I've just done it. Adam Cowning, we need a strong leader who is open and honest about what and how we need to change to support the British people and the country. At least Trump is hopefully putting the USA first. That's absolutely right. Adam's a good lad. Adam's the one who basically gave me the lights that light up this broadcast, as we call it. So thank you, Adam. You're a top man. At least we don't carry guns for protection. Argue that, John. No, I can argue that straight away. That's Jerry Franklin Driver. I would like the right to bear arms. I think that's correct. And I think if you know about your American history, because America is a federation of states, the reason why they want to keep their guns primarily is they don't agree or support big government. They don't want a position where the president can suddenly say, this is the situation, or turn against those individuals. And also, if somebody breaks into my house, why can't I blow them away? I've not invited them. I've never understood this argument with Brits. And I've never understood the argument, if you arm the police, then the villains will just tool up. Well, they're already tooled up. They've already got knives and guns, and when they're not shooting each other, they're trying to shoot coppers, aren't they? But going back to, should you be able to have a gun? And so, I'm not so sure about the fully automatic stuff, but I think you should have the right to have a gun. I've been in America a lot, done a lot of radio over there. And when you go to their studios, most of the DJs have got, they call it a concealed weapon, don't they? Although they all want to show you their pistol. Maybe I've just been going to the wrong radio. Anyway, leave that. Move on, Gaunty. Careful. Starmer's stormtroopers will be in on you. But so Jerry Franklin Driver, I'm sorry to say, I think your point is nonsense. I think as well, if we ask the majority of this country, do you think you should have a gun? And do you think that in your house, if somebody breaks in, there should be no such thing as reasonable force, which is what at the moment, you should be able to bat 7 barrels of you-know-what out of that person who has come into your place where your children, your wife, your husband, your lover is. This is why we're in such a state. That's why I talked about crime yesterday and about violent crime. It's just out of order. And these toe rags on the street who just give you so much cheek because they know there's no repercussions. So, yeah, I'd rather have the American style. Sorry if that's upset you. Trump's game is basically, if you tax me, I'm going to tax you. So drop your tax, says RTDL Slot Racing Club. Drop mine. No one read the room or understood the basics of it. He's talking about our politicians. They're fools. You're right. That is what he said. He basically said that. And he said, support me over Ukraine. And if you don't, then I'll go it alone. And there's good and bad to that. That's what he's done. And I don't blame him. I would much rather Trump be in power in this country. I've jokingly said a few weeks ago, forget Canada, make us the 51st state of the USA. John is the voice of reason. Who's this? Steve. Steve, his matron there. Have you not had your medication? He says, John is the voice of reason. We need more people speaking their minds, but they're all too scared of the great Gaunty. Remember, Gaunty's back for good. That's a song, isn't it? Take that. Thank you for your support. That's very kind of you. But yeah, I just want to be able to speak my mind. I just don't understand how we've now got a situation where we've got a prime minister who won't allow you to do that. I mean, we've got a police force that don't even describe what the culprit looks like. Girl gets raped. They're not allowed to say certain things about the person that would describe them, so be able to find them. Stop and search. That's the best one. Can't do stop and search because too many black kids get stopped, and that proves the police are racist. No, it doesn't. It just proves, like Sir Paul Condon said many, many years ago when he was in charge of the Met, if it's knife crime, street crime, it's often young black lads. And do you know what the thing is? Most of the victims are young black lads. If it was burglary, it'd be white lads mostly getting arrested. This is just nonsense. So what happens is people, I guess, scared. This then empowers the thugs. No one voted for that. I want our country to be better. I want our country to lead the world like it used to. But you see, the media, and this is who you've got to blame for a lot of this, the traditional media, the mainstream, lamestream media, they love it the way it is because they get access to the president or the prime minister. They can interview. I mean, look at those two divs. The one who hasn't even started shaving yet, and John Sopel, used to be on the BBC. Today, they're up in Hull with whatever, and they've got with Starmer, and they're interviewing him, and they're both sitting there with ties on, so po-faced, with their laptops on their laps. What's it called? I can't remember what that podcast is called, but people are buying tickets to go and see it. There's hope for me yet. But these two idiots, they want that access, so they're never going to upset Starmer, are they? Or any politician. It's a cozy little club. And that's what they hate about Trump. He's a disruptor. He's come in and he's wound it up. It's also why they hate, dare I say it, Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage. I'm not suggesting Farage, or indeed, definitely not Tommy Robinson, are on the same intellectual plane as Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a master of getting what he wants, an absolute master of it. But don't we just want people to speak their minds? Don't we want a situation where what we see, what every one of us see with our own eyes, doesn't become government policy? Why is that? And so there's this massive divide between traditional political figures, the West Streetings of this world, straight out of school, straight into Oxford or Cambridge or wherever they went, straight into a political job, then an MP. And it's the same on the media side. They all went to the same schools. They all went to the same colleges. They all eat the same shit. They're all the same. They're all self-serving pigs, all of them. And that's why we get forgotten about. And that's why it surprised them and it unnerved them when we voted for Brexit. And that's why they didn't give us Brexit. They only gave us it in name because they don't want it. That's why Mandelson has become the ambassador in America, because he doesn't represent the ordinary man and woman in the street. He wouldn't know them if they mugged him. Do you remember when he had fish and chips up north somewhere and he said, oh, I'd really love that guacamole? It was mushy bloody peas. He lives in a different world. And so does Keir Starmer. Imagine, as I just said earlier, having a beer with Keir Starmer. Would he know what to do with a pork scratching? Thank God we got rid of the fish man coming around selling winkles and cockles and prawns as if he had a skinful. Where would we be? Talking of which, last night I went out with my daughter and we had Spanish tapas, which I like. And then I said, come on, we'll have a final drink in Spoons in Leamington Spa. I don't know if you saw the thing. I put it up on Twitter. So I gave her the money. I needed the loo. You know, I've got to that age, I'm afraid. Changing temperature. Oh, need a quick whiz. So I went for a whiz. She bought the wine. I came back and she had 2 Stella Artois glasses and a bottle of red. I said, what are they? Oh, they've run out of glasses, Dad. I said, is that the best they can do? She said, the woman behind the bar was very helpful. She said, it's the only glasses we've got left with a stem. And she said, I didn't think you want to drink it out of a tumbler, Dad. So we sat in spoons drinking half pints or in pint glasses of wine. Then Lisa, very nicely, decided she'd come. I don't know what I've done. She came and picked us up. So can you imagine it? She walks into Spoons, and I don't care what people say about Tim, whatever his name is, Weatherspoons. You can look down your snooty noses at me at that if you want. But if you just want a quick, simple meal and cheap beer, he has revolutionized the pub trade. Absolutely revolutionized. And Lisa said, why is it so busy? It was a Wednesday night. It was heaving. And a great atmosphere. No violence, no nothing. No loud music, just great. People drinking and eating. People coming in at 10 and having something to eat in a pub, not going to the curry house. Tim Burton? No, he's the actor, isn't he? Tim, whatever his name. Tim Martin. Brilliant. And he's a Brexiteer. Brilliant. That's British entrepreneurs. Anyway, he's an entrepreneur. And I just thought it was great. Although I would now say, if you're watching, Tim, get some more red wine glasses, will you? I had a terrible bloody headache this morning. So, and then we got, at the moment, the cost of living crisis. Would you rather Starmer was in charge of that or Trump? See, I'd like J.D. Vance. See, J.D. Vance has lived. J.D. Vance was brought up in a place where he wore dungarees. He was like the Waltons. No shoes, right? No collar on his shirt. He suffered. His mum was a smackhead. Well, he knows what about the cost of living. So he knows how important that is to ordinary people. Do you think Starmer ever worries about that? Or Mandelson? As long as he's got enough money to buy his guacamole. Yeah? Mind you, I'm a bit of a hypocrite here because this morning I had crushed avocado with poached egg. Fantastic. But I sometimes eat things like that and I think, what are you becoming, Gaunty? What are you becoming? And a cappuccino. So could we cope with the honesty of Trump? Would Trump make Britain great again? I notice I've had one person saying they want to leave it as it is. They actually think Starmer's doing a good job. Everybody else thinks he's an absolute you-know-what, and they want rid of him. And on Twitter, you're even worse. And on Facebook, people saying, take Angela Rayner with you. Well, we've got to be a bit careful what we say about Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner at the moment. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm saying nothing else. Steve, John is... Oh, I've just done that one. That's the one praising me. The death penalty and capital punishment needs to be brought back, correct? The barren flights. The government is risking an uprising. People are on the brink. I would have laughed at you a few weeks ago if you said that, but maybe, Baron, you're right. Politics should be run like a high-end kitchen. Don't argue with the head chef, but the kitchen porter is just as important in position, metaphorically, if you get my drift. I'm going to nick that. That's from, let me just put that up so you all can read it, because I read it a bit clumsily. Basically, what he's saying is there can only be one chef. There can only be one Gordon Ramsay. But Gordon Ramsay is only as good, and he knows this. I met Gordon. He's only as good as the guy or the woman who's washing the pots. Because a kitchen, a high-end kitchen like that, it works on your success being based on your weakest link or the lowest link. I think that's a brilliant analogy, and I think that's what Trump is doing. And I'm going to nick that because that's a brilliant way to describe what you want out of a leader. I want a leader, and that's the thing. I think we've got that in Trump. And Trump didn't have to wash dishes to know how important it is, taking this analogy a bit further, how important it is to have a good kitchen porter. But he is the boss. People don't answer back to Gordon Ramsay, do they? And they shouldn't. And in a way, that's the same with Farage, although he hasn't quite achieved what Trump's achieved. I can understand that's why he's got annoyed about Rupert. Anyway, how can you have somebody called Rupert as the leader? Sorry. Graham, that's the stormtroopers. They'll be coming through the front door in a minute, taking me away. I'm a free man. I'm not a number. Free the Gaunty one. Late tuning in again, John. I'm on shift. Shh, don't tell the boss. Well, Graham, I keep changing the times. I think we're going to move from next week to 6:30 every night. Suits me fine, that. probably Monday to Thursday. RTDL Slot Racing Club says, take it, you're welcome. And by the way, I was a chef, but the industry is dead, sadly. I know. I was just showing off or bragging about, what do you call it, last night, Weatherspoons. But there's not many pubs that are doing that kind of trade. And this thing, I mean, I was talking to my daughter. She's working in hospitality while she does a PhD. And she said, Dad, the problem is we can't afford the staff. And she said, those 16-year-olds used to come and do glass collecting and get to 17. Or you've now got to pay them the same amount of money and NI and all the rest of it as the people who are much older. It's just unsustainable. I've got a friend who runs a real top-class hotel, Nailcott Hall, my mate Rick. I must get him on when we start having guests, but he says the same thing. And then they brag about dropping the price of a pint, the government, by a penny. But they put about 25p of extra costs on. Unsustainable. But that's because Starmer's never been in a proper pub, has he? Could you imagine Starmer go, shall we go down spoons for a breakfast like me and my mate Phil do? No, I can't imagine it. I just couldn't even imagine. I mean, did you see when he put, I mean, no politician should ever have a baby in his hands, kissing the baby's head, or, this is your PR experts, pulling a pint. I've never seen a politician pull a pint properly. It's always like a cream soda, isn't it? It's because they don't live in the real world. They're not real people. They live in this little cocoon where everything goes, where you can spend £7,000 on flipping biscuit. I nearly said the wrong word. Flipping biscuits. Lammy, you fat freak, you fat fool. Outrageous. £7,000 of your money being spent on biscuits. Baron Flight says Starmer was once in a proper pub, Gaunty, but he got thrown out. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. When was Britain great? Says Jerry Franklin Driver. Oh, Jerry, you're the one who doesn't want us to carry guns. I think Britain was great lots of times, my friend, personally. You obviously don't, but that's up to you. I think there was a period, even when Tony Blair was in power, where we thought we were great. And we certainly had movement in the economy. Harold Wilson, I would say. The white heat technology. No? Have I got that wrong? How about when we got the Olympics? So don't knock us. How about when we won 2 world wars for all of those Europeans? The coalition of the useless. Starmer's having another meeting this weekend. Don't know what the biscuit bill is, but he's having another meeting this weekend with the leaders of Europe so they can tell. I'm going to tell that Donald Trump exactly what I think. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. They suddenly, the cat's got their tongue. You follow where I'm coming from? These people are wimps. Absolute wimps. We need a disruptive leader. We need Donald Trump in the United Kingdom, and we need Starmer out. Problem being, there's nobody else in his party or indeed on the opposition benches. And I'd even say this now about reform after their pathetic temper tantrums and die and fly attitude of the last few days. There's nobody even in there that could lead our great nation. And I think that's a tragedy. If you agree with me, keep the debate going on Twitter or X. I can't call it X. Or keep the debate going on Facebook. Thanks for joining me. If you've got kids, this is the most important thing. Make sure you give them a kiss, give them a hug. And don't forget to tell them you love them. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully. Tomorrow's Friday. It'll be an early one. I've got to go to Spoons. I'm joking. See you later. Thanks a lot for joining me. Bye.